All right. Well, it's 7, so I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. If we could have a roll call, please.
Yep. All right. Mr. Allred is excused. Ms. Billman?
Here.
Mr. Fell?
He said here.
Yeah. I gotcha. Mr. Fitch?
Here.
Mr. Hopkins is not here yet. And Mr. Weiskopf, I believe, is excused. And Ms. Yu?
Here.
Great. We have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are none.
Okay. Approval of the minutes of the April 9th, 2020 regular Plan Commission meeting. I was told that this will have to be a roll call vote. But anyone want to move the minutes?
Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
All right. I'll move to approve the minutes. Do I need to say anything more than that?
That's good enough.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Fell, second by Ms. Billman. Now on a roll call vote, are there any changes, first of all? I didn't see any. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Okay. Mr. Allred?
Yes.
Ms. Billman?
Here.
This is to approve the minutes, so I guess I'll need a yes or a yes or no.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Did you say yes? I assume.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Mr. Fell?
Yes.
Mr. Fitch?
Yes,
And Ms. Yu?
Yes.
Okay.
great. Are there any communications?
There are none.
We have no continued public hearings, no old business. We have new public hearings, which I take it we're going to take at the same time in the order provided in the staff memo. So Plan Commission number 2401 CP20, application by the zoning administrator to adopt the 2020 Urbana Pedestrian Master Plan as an amendment to the 2005 Comprehensive Plan. Plan Case 2402 CP20, application by the zoning administrator to adopt the 2020 Urbana Bicycle Wayfinding Plan as an amendment to the 2005 Comprehensive Plan. So,
thank you so much for introducing those two cases. I'm going to really quickly go over a little bit about the cases, and then Gabe Lewis is here from CCRPC, the Regional Plan Commission, and he's going to go over and present the long pedestrian master plan and the bicycle wayfinding plan. That way we can cover a lot of material tonight. So the zoning administrator is requesting the adoption of the Urbana Pedestrian Master Plan and the Urbana Bicycle Wayfinding Plan as amendments to the 2005 Comprehensive Plan. The pedestrian plan recommends infrastructure and programming, much like the Urbana Bicycle Master Plan, if you've been a part of those conversations in the past, based on goals and objectives, existing conditions, public input, and best practices. The wayfinding plan is largely comes out of the bicycle wayfinding plan and recommends sign design and location for bicycle wayfinding throughout Urbana. Gabe Lewis is here to discuss this request. And he can provide a lot of background to these two projects. Gabe, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lily. Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Let me share my screen. All right. Can everyone see the presentation? Seeing head nods. Okay. All right. So the Urbana Pedestrian Master Plan is broken into 7 chapters. We talk about the introduction, goals and objectives, existing conditions, infrastructure types, public input, recommendations, and implementation. And that's what I'll show you tonight. On the introduction, we talk about the local framework defining walkability and accessibility, and pointing to the framework from the City Council and Mayor goals, not only for public safety and vibrant business districts, transportation and connectivity, but creating downtown as a walkable space and Lincoln Square as a destination, expanding the connectivity of the Kickapoo Rail Trail and the Boneyard Creek Path, and making Southeast Urbana and the Philo Road Business District an economic priority. All of these fall within having a good walking environment in Urbana. The study area is the city limits and just the surrounding areas, the major roads on the map on the right. The four major goals are accessibility and connectivity, equity, safety, and vibrancy. So for existing conditions, we looked at a number of things, and it's kind of broken down into demand and supply. So on this demand side, for how we might see people wanting to walk.
We froze, Gabe.
More of our core downtown and university district areas. I'm seeing a message that says my internet connection is unstable, so I apologize if I get booted off, hopefully not. Destinations also looks at the housing density, walking to transit, and pedestrian counts that have been done in pedestrian and vehicle crashes. Supply side, we've looked at the existing infrastructure and the jurisdiction of facilities. So,
Hey, Gabe, I
yes.
think your screen is being blocked by a file folder that popped up.
Oh boy. Okay. Let me try to restart the share. Are you seeing existing conditions slide? Yes, I see Kevin saying yes. Okay. All right. So we have information on the existing infrastructure and where sidewalks are missing on particular streets, and then whether the city owns the sidewalk or IDOT or the school district, the park district, et cetera. We looked at the walking environment, the physical condition of the sidewalks and conditions that deter walking. And this is where I should mention that PUATS, which is the transportation program of RPC, we've been working for many years now, not only Safe Routes to School, which is actually something I started on, but we took that information we had to develop a full sidewalk inventory and assessment. And that is a report that we have. It is a website that information is available. And then we work with the city of Urbana and the other agencies in our community to update the sidewalk information every year. So we have information on not only existing sidewalks, but actually 4 facility types: sidewalks, crosswalks, pedestrian signals, and curb ramps. And then we have information on their compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, and also the condition of those facilities. So I think that's in our infrastructure types, but I just wanted to point that out, that was a big base for a lot of information in this report. We do have analyses about safe routes to school, safe walking routes, and pedestrian level traffic stress. And that PLTS is a wonderful rating where 1 is the best and 4 is the worst, that it looks at each particular block and what the kind of stress would be for a pedestrian walking there. For busier streets or roads without sidewalks, I'm seeing a hand.
Yeah, it's Andrew Fell. It's just a question. This may not be the appropriate time, but since we're on safe walking routes and existing conditions, what's the feeling about the number of brick sidewalks we have and brick streets? Because those are, having lived on one for a long time, a giant hindrance to some of this stuff.
I have a slide on that a little later if you want me to address that then.
No, whenever. I don't care. It's just a question I had, and I didn't know if this was the time to bring it up, but I'll let you address it whenever you want.
Okay, thanks. That's fine. It's a good question. Let me go on to my There we go. Okay, so chapter 4 is about infrastructure types. As I mentioned, those 4 pedestrian facility types. And then we also outline trails, the kind of planner, fancy name, engineering name is shared use paths, since they're shared by pedestrians and bicyclists. There are different types of those, whether it's off-street or runs along a road, or if it runs on a rail corridor like the Kickapoo Rail Trail. And then crossings, not only do we address, or we talk about marked crosswalks, but just pavement markings in general, signage, any hardscape, and lights and signals. All of that falls into that crossing and infrastructure toolbox. So then we talk about the public input that was done. We actually did several outreach events for the first round. We did neighborhood meetings. The study area map shows that the study area was broken into 8 sections. So we had meetings in each of those areas of Urbana. And then we were also at the farmer's market. We got 116 participants and 115 surveys, 90 comment cards. We asked people where they walk, where they have issues walking, where they would like to walk. And you can see that on this map. And then the second round, we presented the recommendations and asked people to prioritize those recommendations. So the recommendations chapter, which does include brick sidewalks, so I'll show that in a minute. On the engineering side, we are recommending for all recommendations include to improve the sidewalks or any of the facility types that have this condition or compliance score of 90 or less. So it's based on a scale of 0 to 100, it gets a score, and 90 to 100 is the best, so it's fine. Anything less is considered a recommendation. There is prioritization criteria, and that includes from that sidewalk network inventory and assessment. There was a sidewalk gap analysis, a missing sidewalk connectivity value, and then existing sidewalk compliance score range. So we're looking at where sidewalks are and where they are not. Those are included in recommendations. We used equity data, including 0 vehicle households, income below poverty level, limited English proficiency, and race and ethnicity to try to weight recommendations to neighborhoods that have higher scores or percentages of these variables. Again, with the sidewalk network, there were priority areas, which were downtown and the Philo, Florida area. So if infrastructure was in that area, got a little bit higher score. And then the 2 rounds of public input for this plan, the recommendations in the Urbana Bicycle Plan and the Park District Trails Plan, since they have same recommendations, but they include side paths and shared use paths. And then information from Safe Routes to School surveys that have been done over the years, because people mark where they have issues on their walking route to school. What happened then, what we did is we broke all of the recommendations into 5 categories, and the highest priority recommendations are listed in the document. The others are listed in the appendix, the high, medium, low, and lowest. And infrastructure includes for sidewalks, sidewalk beveling. That's where if you have a fault that's more than a 1/4 inch, that's a recommendation. Sidewalk gaps, a place between 2 existing sidewalks where there's no sidewalk, and trail projects. And then there's recommendations for curb ramps, crosswalks, crossing enhancements. There's some more data that's needed, pedestrian counts in particular, to determine the right recommendation, and then pedestrian signals. So the map just shows like there's a map for each neighborhood, and all those highest priority locations for these facilities are shown on these maps. Brick sidewalks. So in the capital improvement plan, the map on the right shows 4 different colors. And what we're recommending in this plan is the green color is to reconstruct in brick. We're not recommending a change there. The blue are areas that are to reconstruct in concrete. and we're not recommending a change because then that would be an improvement to be in concrete. The black lines or blocks are brick sidewalks. Instead of having it be that they can be changed or replaced with concrete if the property owner does not wish to keep it as brick, we recommend that it should be the city will automatically reconstruct it as concrete unless the property owner petitions. I'm seeing a hand from Ms. Billman.
Hi. Yeah, this map is so small, I can't tell where anything is. Can you tell us what the cross streets are? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of, can you see it any better?
Yes.
Okay. We are talking about really the historic East Urbana neighborhood, West Urbana, and then actually kind of Northwest Urbana King Park has blue sidewalk or blue lines to reconstruct in concrete. Finally, the red lines are major brick walks, which are to be repaired and reconstructed with bricks. And property owners can request council to waive this requirement to allow it to be reconstructed in concrete. So this map and these recommendations, if you do have changes or comments, I'd be happy to hear them. But this is what we're proposing basically to city staff to change for the process of reconstructing brick sidewalks or dealing with brick sidewalks. We know that it is an accessibility issue to have brick sidewalks. So frankly, concrete sidewalks are better because it addresses those accessibility issues. But I don't want to, I'd rather hear from you all if you have comments on that at any time. I'm going to scroll out to the next slide.
Gabe,
Yes.
question. So, for example, those that are recommended to be reconstructed in brick, was that based on public input, or where does that recommendation come from?
We did get public input about the brick sidewalks being a problem, but we also got some public input that people like, other people like the brick sidewalks. So this was our way to try to address both audiences. Again, at least changing the default, instead of it just being automatically reconstructed in brick, that it would be automatically constructed in concrete. And then if a property owner has wants to petition, then they can take that up with the city.
I'm trying to get clarification there. What I understand is that the only contribution of this plan to the brick sidewalks question is the change to the items in black. That is, this map comes from somewhere else. Correct or incorrect?
That is correct.
Okay, so the choice of which links of sidewalk are in which colors is coming from the Urbana CIP?
Correct.
Okay. That might be important to make even a little more clear, because I'm not sure everybody caught that.
Okay.
So if you want to contest the choice of links, that's being accepted, you have to contest the CIP.
Yeah, well, what this plan is recommending is that city staff, this is our recommended action for the city staff to take on, and then they could make this change in the CIP.
Well, but you're not recommending in this plan that city staff make any changes in which links of sidewalk are in which category.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so maybe a question for city staff is this set of links and this CIP, if it's nowhere else, is the backing for this set of links being given these categories articulated somewhere? Given the controversy about brick sidewalks in Urbana, it might be appropriate that it be articulated in this plan, since this is the city of Urbana's pedestrian plan.
That was my
I
question.
guess that in terms of, that in terms of public response to the plan, this might be one of the hottest issues.
Understood.
Yeah, that was my question, Gabe. Was the color coding came from where? Did it come from public input or was it pre-existing?
Pre-existing in the capital improvement plan.
Yeah, the 2003 or 2001 ordinance that this is referring to, it's well before my time here, but we can provide a little bit more historical background in the future about how that came about. But yes, it's a contested issue, and I think just to be a little bit more clear, this is a recommendation for staff to pursue a change just for the black segments in the CIP.
I think the answer is yes.
Ms. Billman?
Can you blow that up again, the map?
Sure.
Yeah, I can't find that anywhere in the memo.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can. Is that big enough or?
No.
It's closer, but
I'm gonna need to study that because it's a big issue in our neighborhood, and I have a lot of experience with it.
You've been sent, if you go back to your, I don't know if people can hear me. If you go back to the document, which was sent to you in your email, the map is there and you can easily read the whole thing. Maybe not in real time, but.
You mean one of the 543 pages?
Yeah, I actually did look at it.
Well, I read most of it, but in the memo that was actually, there was a link with the Zoom meeting. I couldn't find it, but I'll go back and look at the thing. I don't want to get into too much of a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I apologize. I put together the memo and I pulled out the recommendations for the plan and infrastructure, but this was a policy recommendation to make a small change from the black segments. So it wasn't, I didn't attach as a separate exhibit the policy recommendations.
Okay, yeah, I can study it later.
So when we get to discussion or something, we need to figure out what's going to happen here.
Yes. Mr. Fell?
Yeah, just a small question. Maybe it's a not quite a relevant point, but just procedurally, if the capital improvement plan is to replace the brick sidewalks with concrete sidewalks, and the owner has an option to keep his brick sidewalk, I assume they get notified that their sidewalk's going to come out. It's not like Public Works shows up and just pulls their sidewalk out.
Yes, we work with every property owner.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure of that. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you. All right. In some of the engineering categories, we have 5 development recommendations, 11 maintenance recommendations, and 4 streetscape recommendations. Under the programs, there are 17 education recommendations, 27 for encouragement, 6 in enforcement, and 14 for evaluation, and then 2 other policy recommendations to review the lighting ordinance and snow removal ordinance. So there's a lot to work with, not only on the engineering side, but programs, ideas that the city can partner with many folks, school district, park district, CU Safe Routes to School project, et cetera, on implementing programs involving walking. And finally, in implementation, we have cost estimates for the highest priority recommendations, as well as information on various funding sources, such as bonds, special assessments, sales tax, sidewalk millage, property tax levies, federal programs, and other shared use path funding. And then finally, we have recommended just to have an interdepartmental pedestrian and bicycle team at the city and a coordinator, and to support efforts to create a pedestrian advocacy group. That is a summary, if I can say that, of the Urbana Pedestrian Master Plan.
Great, thank you. Are there any further questions on the pedestrian plan at this time? Mr. Hopkins?
So we're still in questions, right?
Correct.
Not discussion?
Correct.
Okay. So I looked reasonably hard, but I could not find any indication of the gap or the priority for the fix at the East University Avenue, High Cross Road, that we tried to force an applicant to provide because it was a high priority. And if it's not in the plan, that seems a little odd.
That's a question for city staff.
Pardon?
I said, is that a question for city staff? Why is it not?
Yes, I mean, I guess my question is, did I miss it? Is it there?
I didn't see it.
So I would have to take a look at that and check. I'd also have to take a look at the CIP. So we do rank and prioritize infrastructure improvements in our capital improvements plan. So that's something that I'll do a little bit of background research for.
Okay, so that raises another point, which maybe is for discussion, that I would normally think of this plan as driving the CIP, not the other way around. But this, if we're going to adopt it, ought to at least be up to date.
Okay. Thank you. Do you want to proceed now with the presentation for the other plan case? Or would the commissioners rather go ahead and discuss this plan case now? Any thoughts? All right, let's proceed with discussion of this case. So any further thoughts on Mr. Hopkins' point about the brick sidewalks and an amendment to the other plan, the capital improvement plan? I can tell you that my if there's the original thought when the brick sidewalk plan was put out many years ago was that the city would provide a pot of money to maintain them. If properly maintained, brick sidewalks are not a problem. The city did that for a few years and then stopped. And so this would be a change from that policy, no doubt. And I don't think that my neighbors would like it. I know the brick sidewalks here are not good, and so people, especially in wheelchairs, have to ride in the street often. And now we have buses going down our street because of the Washington and Vine detour. So it's a problem. A temporary one from the bus's standpoint, but the sidewalk maintenance is the issue. So anyway, that's the history as I understand it. Mr. Hopkins?
So you are saying that your neighbors would be concerned that brick sidewalks are going to be concrete, that they're not being maintained, that what?
That there, if there's no, if there's a change from the original intent, as we understood it, which was that the city would begin to maintain the brick sidewalks and maintain as many of them as possible, rather than switching them out to concrete, sort of, I don't know, unilaterally, I guess is probably a poor word, but say I wanted concrete in front of my house. And so I asked the city to replace the brick. I know that our neighborhood association would not be in favor of that. We did make a deal with the city a few years ago to maintain the brick on the south side of Green Street and install concrete the length of the north side of Green Street to provide a walking between Victory Park and the mall. So that kind of thing could be arranged. But I think just a wholesale, we're going to replace these certain brick sidewalks with concrete would not be well accepted. So, but it's, I'm unclear that it's part of this plan.
Well, but I think that's the key issue for us.
It is, yeah.
What is this plan saying about this? And if this is being done in 2020 and the other, by the date on the image we were looking at a minute ago was, I think, 2003, it would seem that maybe this ought to be at least stated in a way that says we're not changing anything but this. And the implication is the city is going to go back to what it was doing and actually provide money to maintain them, which I think is pretty clear at the moment is not going to be able to happen.
It's not happening, that's correct.
It's not going to happen. I mean, it hasn't happened, and it is even less likely to happen going forward.
Correct.
So, either we don't worry about whether what's in the plan has to do with reality, or we say it differently.
Mr. Allred.
So I guess this is kind of a question for staff too, but the comprehensive plan update that's about to kick off or occur in the next couple of years, would that involve relooking at this map from 2003 and possibly updating that to current reality?
I defer to Mr. Garcia.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we could look at. I mean, I think in a comprehensive plan, most things can be on the table if you choose to look at them. So there's definitely something we could look at there. I'm trying to look at the map and see. I mean, so the map, Gabe, did you pull this map from the current CIP? Okay, yeah. So it's not that the map is dated from 2003. It's that if I can read sideways, it says the brick sidewalk program was begun in December 2003.
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But when were the data that are displayed there as decisions made?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so up until this year and the most recent capital improvements plan, just CIP for all you people listening at home, the capital improvements plan was something that was pretty much confined to public works. And this year, the city administrator got involved and wanted to expand that so that we could have a more inclusive process for developing the CIP. The COVID stuff hit, so this year's CIP, we were able to do some of the bringing in other staff from other departments to help develop the CIP. I think going forward, we're going to see it more, I think, reflect what staff would like to see citywide, and not just something that was created in-house at Public Works. So all this is to say, I don't know how this map was created, or when, how the decisions were made, because that was a former thing that was sort of controlled in Public Works. I think going forward, we'd be able to understand, even look at this map wholesale and come to maybe more inclusive decisions about it.
I just want to clarify that this is the same map from before, or has it been changed?
This is a map, Gabe, from the most recent capital improvements plan. Yes.
Yeah. You haven't approved the 2020. Am I correct, or did you?
We don't.
I'm not sure.
Okay. I mean, it should be. It would be 2019, so we could
yeah.
update it with whatever's in the 2020, but I don't think that's been approved. I'll have to double check.
Well, presumably the categories of the links are not being revised in the CIP, which is the budgeting priority process, whereas the categorization of the links are based on the discussions with neighbors in previous planning exercises, which is where the categories came from, I'm pretty certain.
That sounds right.
And so I don't think this is about the question of which ones the city might be planning to do in the next 3 to 5 years and where they were going to get the funding is what I would expect to see in a CIP. A decision that the way in which the city interacted with its neighbors and property owners and ideas about sidewalk type, I would not expect to be modified or changed in a CIP process, especially the current or maybe now prior Urbana CIP process. So that's coming from somewhere else. It ought to be coming from a plan, which is what this is.
Yeah, so, I mean, is it possible it would be a shame to adopt this plan and amend, our current comp plan to include this and then have it be outdated next year based on public input. So is there a way to word the reference to this map in this plan such that it refers to whatever the most current version of this map is? Because obviously we're not going to be able to collect input and make a revision to how these links are classified in the near future, but it does seem like it might be something that's worth revisiting in the comp plan update.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to certainly review it and make any recommendations tonight. No way.
So to refine that statement, I think part of what that would require is being clear in this plan where that map came from and when, based on what input. And then it not only makes clear that what we want to be referring to is the most recent version, but that this version has this status. Presumably that could be done.
I would agree to that. Could that small change be accomplished?
I think so. I would probably ask city staff to make sure, I mean, we'll work together anyway, but if you have wording or background information that should go in there, please let me know. So, yep.
Yeah, we'll look into it, and now I'm curious about where all this came from as well, so I want to make sure to get the background.
Okay. Well, I said I didn't want to go down a rabbit hole, and there we went. So, any further discussion on other aspects of the plan?
So before we vote, I'd like to make sure that somebody's going to check on the Aldi gap.
Oh yeah, good.
Yeah, I'll confer with Gabe about that and look into some other stuff.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
So before making a motion, let me get on the record an issue about this whole process. We are being asked to adopt this as an amendment to the comprehensive plan. I would prefer not to do that, even though it's long-time practice. But the reason we do that, I've been told, is so that it has the small but not zero backing that a comp plan under Illinois state law has for city decision-making. And it's the comp plan by wording in statute, which somebody else can probably get a lot closer to quickly than I can, that has that status. So unless we call this part of the comp plan, it doesn't have that status. But the problem with that is that, in effect, what Dustin was raising earlier, if we're going to do a new comp plan, that's the way we're talking about it, then we would have to adopt that new comp plan as an amendment to the current comp plan, so that our new comp plan included all of the plans like this one, and there are lots of them. This is one of many. You can probably tell I've had this conversation before. Become part of the new comp plan and don't disappear. And part of this is, sort of legal statute, but part of it is also our trying to keep track of what plans we think we're actually operating under. So with that, I'm willing to send this forward with a few minor corrections, but I think we have to be careful where we're going with our current procedures on the new comp plan.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? What are the corrections that you'd like to add to a motion when someone makes one? One specifically to clarify the language regarding brick sidewalks and the inclusion of the map, and two, clarification of the status of the proposed sidewalk in a recent plan case near High Cross and University.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other adjustments? So I think that if somebody wants to make a motion, you could just reference the 2 points I just made as I don't know what you call adjustments or conditions.
So somebody has to bring up on their screen the case number, which is a little tricky.
Here, I'll type it into the chat. Oh, there is no chat. Huh.
I didn't print out the agenda, and it
2401.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lily.
No,
somebody else who's got it can make a motion.
2401-CP-20.
So before a motion is made, I wanted to point out that I don't think we're in a huge rush to get this adopted. And I know this is a long plan along with the bike wayfinding plan. So there doesn't need to be action on this tonight. If you wanted to, continue this to the next plan commission meeting to give more time to, to read the whole thing and digest what's in there. That's an option. And if that were an option, then, we could look into these couple of proposed changes between now and the next meeting and, and show you how we might work those in. You can certainly, definitely can make a motion tonight, but I just wanted to make sure you were aware of both options there.
Sure, thanks. Any
Yes, that's what we should do.
Okay. Okay, I got a thumbs up, I got smiles. I'm gonna call that a straw poll. And therefore I will, do we have to vote on this?
We're not taking any action.
Well, before you got on, there's some kind of new executive order that talks about what needs to happen in these digital meetings.
Yeah, I don't think that you would need to do a roll call on continuing.
Okay, in that case, by acclamation, hearing no objections, we'll continue this meeting to the next regular Plan Commission meeting, which is what date? July something? July 2nd?
July 9th.
July 9th. Okay, continue to July 9th. And now plan case 2402 CP20. This is the bicycle wayfinding plan.
All right. Let me share my screen. Can everyone see presentation?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So as Lily mentioned, this is something that came out of the Urbana Bicycle Master Plan. With this document, there is an introduction. We look at peer area, we compare Urbana to some other peer areas with this type of signage. We looked at existing signs in Urbana and destinations. We did public input, and we have sign designs and placement and then implementation. So the plan foundation comes from the Bike Master Plan to install bikeway and trail wayfinding signs to supplement existing and proposed bike route and trail signs in Urbana. This talks about the purpose of the plan, the policy framework. The study area is the same as the pedestrian plan, which is essentially the greater Urbana area, the city limits and the major roads just outside of the city limits. There was a steering committee with folks from several agencies. And then we talk about the benefits of wayfinding, which, if you are aware that there are bike route signs out there, having the destination and distance and direction information can let people know where destinations are. They can show that maybe a destination isn't as far as they might have thought. So it can try to change the thinking in one's head that they could bike there instead of driving there to a destination. We talk about the bike wayfinding principles, and then the Urbana Green Loop is mentioned, which is this idea to connect all of the parks and greenways in Urbana through a series of trails and on-street bike routes and facilities. So when looking at other areas, 5 areas jumped out as having plans and or signage that were kind of primary areas. This includes Dane County in Wisconsin, where Madison is, Fort Collins, Colorado, Peoria, Illinois, Tompkins County, New York, and the Finger Lakes region, and Wichita, Kansas. And then we had somewhere around 20 other cities that we considered where they either just had signs and no plan, or they had other information. The existing sign inventory is shown on the map here. And obviously you're not going to read every single dot, but I mentioned that there are bike route signs. This came through a Safe Routes to School grant in 2013 to connect different parts of Urbana to the middle school in the center of town, as well as 5 of the 6 elementary schools. But again, I mentioned that it's missing that additional information, the destinations, direction, and distance. We outline information on the bikeways. So typically, this was something we asked in this process, how we wanted bikeways to be named. And the result was to name them after the major street that it follows. So Main Bikeway, Washington Bikeway, Philo Bikeway, etc. There's information on abbreviations that go on the signs. And then destinations are broken up into primary, secondary, and tertiary categories. This is best practice from other communities. This helps to determine what destinations are placed on the signs. And so the primary are the regional level destinations like other cities, Champaign, and even St. Joseph with the Kickapoo Rail Trail. And then big districts, downtown Urbana and the University of Illinois, and signature parks like Meadowbrook Park. Secondary destinations are those at the community level, like Lincoln Square, Brookings Sports Complex, Blair Park. These primary bikeways like Main Street, and health clinics like Christie Clinic, Carl. And then the neighborhood level are all of the kind of secondary, tertiary bikeways like Illinois Street, employers, Dart Solo Cup, neighborhood schools, neighborhood parks, etc. As I mentioned, we did have a public meeting where 31 people weighed in on both the design and the naming and the prioritization. For the designs, you'll see in the photo that they were presented with toppers that are different colors and different shapes. And we had people vote on that for the on-street or the off-street facilities. Then with the corridor prioritization, there were 9 east-west corridors that were recommended as the top priority to implement, and 5 north-south corridors. So that came, that helped develop the sign design and placement chapter. So we have our bikeway designations and the naming, and the designs for the off-street signs were this rectangular, darker brown color. For the city signs, it falls in the city color scheme for the colors that are used. The University of Illinois and other agencies can use their own topper and even have their own color. The university, I believe, is a white background. And then there's information not only about the different sign types, but again, those jurisdictions and fonts and arrows. It breaks down into 3 types of signs. There's the decision sign that's on the left in this image, that you have 3 destinations, and it's placed at an intersection of 2 bikeways, whether that's a trail or an on-street bikeway. And it tells you what's ahead, what's in either direction, and the distance. The turn sign can be used where you have a lot of turns in a small space, and you just need to guide the bicyclist in the direction to follow the bikeway. And then confirmation is just the confirming after you've made the turn what bikeway you're on. So there's information on the placement and assembly. And then there were also prioritization criteria that went into developing these priority corridors. And that is route readiness, if there's a facility there already or not, like bike lanes, proximity to destinations. There's a bicycle level of traffic stress similar to that pedestrian level of traffic stress, the 1 to 4 scale. Again, equity measures, the public input received for this plan, and then whether it closes a gap. If it's very close to 2 disconnected bike routes or facilities, then it's going to get a higher score. And you can see in the red, hopefully you can see the map, there were 5 high priority or priority 1 corridors. that are Main Street, Washington Street, Ray Street, Anderson Street, and Windsor Road. And then additional priority 2 and 3 corridors, and everything else is just priority 4. Finally, there's information on the number of signs that would be required for each of these priority corridors, and there's also information on funding sources, both local resources, information from peer areas, and public and private resources. This is something that I know when we talked with BPAC and Public Works was on the call, they mentioned that, you know, there's a lot of signs that would need to be installed, and then eventually you get to a maintenance kind of time frame where signs would need to be replaced. So this helps prioritize what corridors can be addressed at one time so that you have signage on a full corridor. And that is a summary of the Urbana Bicycle Wayfinding Plan.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Lewis? I think it's pretty straightforward plan from my perspective. Ms. Billman, I can barely see you. There you are.
You know? Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a timeline for these things?
Oh, for implementation? Good question.
That was the reference I was saying at the end for this bike wayfinding plan. It's something that the city can focus on one corridor at a time. So it's really a long-term, I mean, I don't even want to put an exact time frame, but I think, you know, it could be a 10-year thing where you're looking at all these different levels of priorities of installing bike wayfinding signs. I don't know if city staff or anybody else wants to add on to that, but.
I mean, I think the only plan that out of these would be the Urbana Bicycle Master Plan that put kind of a vague timeline on it, and it was very loose, but it was really as a matter of prioritization and connecting the network in a certain time frame. These plans are really where we want to prioritize funding when it becomes available. So.
No timeline. Okay, further questions? Mr. Hopkins?
So this is said to come out of the bikeways plan. And I'm not entirely sure what that means. I sort of take it to mean that it elaborates on something that was already in that plan. Is that?
Yes, that's correct. The bicycle master plan came up with like 13 areas for those recommendations. And one of them was addressing the bike or the wayfinding signage. So yes, this plan gets into more detail with that essentially. It looks at different corridors, like how much signage would be needed, what designs would look like. That
and
type of information.
It doesn't do much beyond the signage question. Does it do anything beyond the signage question that isn't already in the bikeways plan?
I can't disagree with that. It's one recommendation in the bike master plan was the bike route facility type, and this helps. I'm missing the word I'm trying to think of. I mean, it supplements that. It tries to go further with what that looks like. And as I mentioned, trying to have effective signage to try to improve or increase bicycling with that supplemental information, so that it's not just, oh, there's a bike route, but there's nothing else on the street. So that may not mean anything to anybody, but having additional information.
But it doesn't add any new routes.
That's correct.
Okay. So my suggestion is that if we do this, we make it an amendment to the bikeways plan, which I'm fairly certain was already adopted as an amendment to the comp plan. But the nitpicking reason for this is that this is really only about the bikeways plan and is really, I would argue, subservient to the bikeways plan. And if we're going to think about our next comp plan, revising brick sidewalks and maybe revising bikeways, we got a mess coming up. The more we can keep track of, the better.
Any further questions? No? In that case, thank you very much, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Is this it's an interesting point. Would it be sufficient to simply, I think the recommendation was to have it be an addendum to the comp plan. Would it be sufficient to change our recommendation to be an addendum to the bicycle master plan?
And Kevin, you go ahead.
Yeah, I like the logic behind what Lou is saying. This really is just sort of a supplement to the bike plan and expanding on the bike plan itself. We've already adopted the bike plan as an element of the comprehensive plan, so it just seems a lot cleaner to do it that way. I'm not sure the mechanism for doing that at this point, since we've advertised the case as an amendment to the comp plan. But I can look into that. Like the pedestrian plan, we're not in a huge rush to get this adopted in one way or another. So I can look into the logistics of, of adding this as an amendment to the bike plan or as a supplement to the bike plan instead of an element of the comp plan, because I do think that logic makes more sense.
If I could just kind of also throw out a possible option here too. I've also always seen this as a part of the bicycle master plan, but the legal description and legal ad for this case is to amend the comprehensive plan. And as that is a plan that was adopted in the comprehensive plan, by incorporating this wayfinding sign in the comprehensive plan, we can always keep it underneath the umbrella of the bicycle master plan if Plan Commission would want to go that route. That way it still has the weight behind it, especially when going out to funding and getting grants for implementing this plan or these plans. It has the weight of the comprehensive plan, but we know that it's under the bicycle master plan.
So the purpose I agree with, but there's a logic here. The bicycle master plan is indeed part of the comp plan because it was an amendment to the comp plan. So if we amend the bicycle plan, we are by definition amending the comp plan because the bicycle plan is part of the comp plan by amendment.
Correct. And
but by making it explicitly an amendment to the bike plan, then when we modify the bike plan, or when we replace it, or when we replace part of the comp plan and not all of the comp plan, such as when we replace most of the traditional comp plan with a new traditional comp plan, but don't make a new bikeways plan, which strikes me as highly likely based on base rate of the last 50 years of planning practice, this will be the amendment to that bike plan and will still be there even though the comp plan has been changed. Anyway, you've got a couple of weeks to work on it.
Yeah, that makes more sense to me. And the notice provision is really something that I would like to have you make sure that if we have to renotice it or not.
Yeah, we'll find out.
You don't think so, Lou?
We're making an amendment to an amendment. That doesn't make it not part of it. It just makes it clear hierarchically that if we change the amendment being the comp plan, that in doing so, we change amendments
to
the bike plan.
your logic is that by amending the bicycle plan, in effect, we're amending the comp plan, which is what the notice said we were going to do.
Right, but it keeps the
Makes more
chunks
sense.
of that octopus that we now claim as our comp plan in order so that we don't have to get rid of the whole octopus and start all over again, which is absurd because we know we're not going to do that. We're not going to do another bike plan in a year and a half just because we made a new comp plan. And we're not going to do another signage plan just because we made a new whatever.
Yep. I agree. Anybody?
And we're not going to merge the documents,
No.
and they're not even going to be indexed in the same place. And nobody but us will actually know.
Well, if I buy it, I don't know if anybody else has thought. If not, we
Sounds
could,
good to me.
Yeah. I think if not, we could move it, and this is 2402 CP20. We could move it as an amendment to the bicycle master plan, which is part of the comprehensive plan by amendment. All right.
So are you trying to do that now or the next meeting?
You convinced me that we could do it now without renoticing. So if everybody's in agreement, I would prefer to do this now.
So somebody's got to,
Somebody make a motion. I'll move it. I move plan case 2402 CP20 be sent to the city council with an adjustment that recommendation to adopt the bicycle wayfinding plan as an amendment to the bicycle master plan.
second,
Motion by me, second by Mr. Hopkins. Okay, any further discussion? All right, then a roll call vote, please.
Sorry, I was muted. That's not going to help. Mr. Allred,
Yes.
Ms. Billman,
Yes.
Mr. Fell,
Yes.
Mr. Fitch,
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins,
yes.
and Ms. Yu.
Yes.
That motion passes. And so we're now on to new business, which we do not have. We don't have any audience participation. Staff report? Do we have a staff report? We do not.
No staff
We-
report. Unless,
We have one new staff to celebrate.
oh, yes, sure. So you all know Kat Trotter, who was our associate planner. She was a part-time planner. She has been hired as a planner one, so she is now full-time. Thank you,
That's
Billy.
very nice. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Lewis, for sticking with us, and city staff. And so since we don't have a study session, we are now adjourned.